Elara Hayes had two simple rules for surviving her family's weekly game night. First, never let her younger sister, Chloe, pick the category in Pictionary. Chloe drew exclusively in vague, phallic shapes. And second, never, under any circumstances, allow her mind to drift to her best friend, Liam Parker, who was, inevitably, always seated within 10 feet of her. Tonight, they were playing charades, and Elara was about to break the second rule with catastrophic, life-altering consequences. The stakes were ridiculous, as usual. The losing team had to spend the following Saturday cleaning out the garage, a task nobody wanted, mostly because it was rumored their dad's ancient wrestling trophies had achieved sentient life. Elara was on Team Hawk, pitted directly against Liam's Team Griffin. She lived for competition, and right now, her heart was hammering a furious rhythm against her ribs as Chloe frantically acted out the title of an obscure 1980s romantic comedy. Okay, romantic comedy. One word. Elara yelled, leaning forward on the edge of the sofa. Chloe was doing an aggressive full-body hug motion followed by a confused shrug. Love. Lost. Commitment. When Harry met Sally. No, wait, too many words. Elara gripped a throw pillow, her eyes scanning the room frantically. She needed inspiration, needed to focus, but the air conditioning unit suddenly groaned, and Liam, sitting opposite her on the plush armchair, leaned back and rubbed his temples in frustration, letting out a soft, amused groan of his own. It was the most mundane movement in the world. He was wearing his gray, threadbare university hoodie, and the action tilted his head just enough for the soft, diffused light from the floor lamp to catch the subtle shadow beneath his jaw and the way the corner of his mouth curved when he was trying not to laugh at Chloe's theatrics. He looked comfortable, unfairly handsome, and completely unaware of the mental demolition derby he was causing inside Elara's skull. A thought, completely unfiltered and delivered with the force of a train wreck, shot through her brain. Why is he so cute when he smiles like that? The competitive pressure, the adrenaline, the absolute need to vocalize a guess. It all combined into one perfect, terrible, explosive moment. Her rational brain, the one dedicated to preserving the perfect platonic status quo, momentarily collapsed, and the thought that screamed in her mind somehow bypassed her conscious filter and was instantly flung into the crowded, suddenly silent living room. Why is he so cute when he smiles like that? Elara yelled. Silence. Absolute, terrifying, fire alarm silence. Chloe froze mid-shrug. Elara's mother, who had been refereeing, lowered her clipboard so slowly it looked like a scene from a bad western. Liam, whose smile had instantly vanished, simply looked confused, the kind of confused a dog gets when it hears a strange noise. Then the explosion. It started as a single strangled snort from Elara's older brother, Mark, but quickly spiraled into a collective eruption. Chloe shrieked with high-pitched, manic glee. Elara's father slapped his knee so hard the remote control jumped into the air. Her mother threw her head back and let out a full belly-shaking laugh that echoed through the house. It wasn't a guess. I wasn't guessing. Elara stammered, scrambling for the pillow she had dropped. Her face was hot, the temperature rapidly approaching core meltdown. She could feel the blood pounding behind her eyes. Mark wiped a tear from his eye. Oh, sweetie, we all know it wasn't a guess. That was a confession. He looked straight at Liam. Pay up, Parker. You owe me $50. Liam, bless his oblivious gentle heart, finally found his voice. He looked from Elara's burning face to Mark, who was now holding out a hand. Wait, what? A confession of what? What game are we playing now? The game of truth, Liam, Elara's mother said, her voice still thick with laughter, and Elara just lost spectacularly. Elara didn't need to look at Liam to know he was blushing. She could feel the heat radiating from him, the same way she could feel the horrified, nauseating certainty that she had just ruined years of careful, meticulously maintained friendship. Her whole family, her siblings, her parents, even her quiet, elderly Uncle Gene in the corner, were staring at them, wearing expressions of total vindicated, aggressive shipping. The only way out was up. I don't feel well, Elara announced, a masterful lie, considering she had never felt more alive with sheer, desperate panic. I think I ate something bad. I have to go. Good night, everyone. She didn't wait for a response. She didn't look at Liam. She just ran, leaving the sound of her family's booming laughter and Mark's triumphant shout of, "They're perfect together," ringing in her ears, already cementing her accidental outburst as the greatest, most boundary-crushing moment in Hayes family history. She slammed her bedroom door, praying that her wall of denial was thick enough to keep the truth and Liam out. Elara woke up Monday morning with a distinct metallic taste of shame coating the back of her throat. For a brief, blissful moment, she thought the previous Saturday night had been a stress-induced fever dream involving charades and public humiliation. Then she glanced at the throw pillow on the floor, the very one she'd been gripping when the words, "Why is he so cute when he smiles like that?" had exited her mouth, and the horror washed back in. It hadn't been a dream. It was a career-limiting move for a dedicated platonic friend. Her strategy was immediate, drastic, and thoroughly outlined in her planner. Operation Silent Ghost. Step 1. Do not leave the house. Step 2. If forced to leave the house, adopt a large, dark hood and refuse to make eye contact. Step 3. Respond to all family communication with single-word replies. Step 4. Delete Liam's number. No, too dramatic. Archive Liam's number. She managed to execute Step 3 with her mother over breakfast. "Elara, dear, you feeling better after your sudden illness?" Mrs. Hayes asked, stirring her coffee with deliberate slowness. Elara, hunched over her oatmeal, kept her gaze fixed on the cereal bowl. "Fine," Elara mumbled, achieving the perfect blend of evasiveness and brevity. "Good. I just thought, since you're so fine, you could pop over and take those academic journals back to Liam. He left them here after the game. It would be a great chance for you two too." "No," Elara stood up, nearly knocking her chair over. "Just no?" "Not no, thank you. Or, no, I'm busy?" "No." Elara grabbed her backpack, preparing for a tactical retreat. She knew the journals were a lie. Liam had everything digitized. This was purely a reconnaissance mission by the Chief Shipper Brigade. Before she could escape, her phone buzzed with an incoming call from Maya, her roommate and best friend from college. Elara answered, grateful for a distraction, only to find zero solace. "Girl, Chloe just sent me the family group chat thread from Saturday night." Maya's voice was too loud, too amused. "Your brother Mark has officially changed your family's Wi-Fi password to Elara loves Liam for Eva." Elara groaned, pressing the phone against her forehead. It was a fluke. It was the charade's pressure. "I was trying to guess a romantic movie, and my brain short-circuited and spat out the nearest romantic thought, which just happened to be that." That's the most Elara explanation I've ever heard. You know, you could just say, "Yeah, I think my best friend is cute, who cares?" But no, you had to turn it into an international incident. Maya paused. "Did he say anything?" "No. I ran. I basically staged my own death by food poisoning. I haven't checked my phone for texts from him because I'm scared it'll auto-combust into a pile of awkward ash." "You're pathetic," Maya said, with loving sincerity. "He's probably just confused. He's Liam. He thinks everyone loves everyone." Maya's words inadvertently stung. Liam was that genuinely good. He was the kind of person who gave his full attention to whoever was speaking, remembered the name of your grandmother's cat, and yes, smiled with an open, genuine warmth that made the world feel slightly less cynical. That was the problem. He was impossible not to like, which made her denial even more structurally unsound. Later that afternoon, while Elara was holed up in her room attempting to research the psychological basis of accidental verbal slips, or, as she titled the document, the confession catastrophe, the inevitable occurred. Her phone screen lit up. "Liam Parker, 2:17 p.m. Hey. I hope you really are feeling okay now. Sorry about the game night chaos. Your family is intense." Elara stared at the benign, kind, completely non-accusatory message. Her fingers flew across the keyboard in a panic-fueled frenzy. She needed to re-establish the wall of denial. Immediately. "Elara Hayes, 2:18 p.m. Liam. OMG. Yes, I am fine. Listen, I have no idea what happened Saturday. It must have been the stress of charades coupled with the questionable salmon dip Dad served. I think I had a temporary stroke. You know I'm competitive. My brain just went into overdrive. Obviously, I meant nothing by it, and it was the salmon talking, not me. It was weird. So sorry for the chaos. See you never. See you later." She hit send and instantly regretted the use of the all caps and the dramatic, unnecessary mention of a stroke. It was the definition of protesting too much. A minute later, Liam replied. "Liam Parker, 2:20 p.m. Face with tears of joy I figured. Glad the salmon hasn't permanently damaged your brain. Talk soon, Elara. That was it. He bought it. Or at least, he was polite enough to pretend he bought it. Elara let out a shaky sigh of relief, sinking back into her chair. The crisis was averted. The friendship was salvaged. She didn't know that, while she was composing her salmon dip excuse, her brother Mark was standing in Liam's driveway, delivering a brand new, 6-foot-tall, ridiculously heavy mahogany bookshelf to Liam's apartment. The accompanying text message, which Liam would read 5 minutes later, was simple. Hey buddy, Dad says Elara needs help moving this massive bookshelf tomorrow morning at 9. She's too embarrassed to ask. Go be her hero. The trap was sprung. Elara pulled her car up to the curb of her parents' house at precisely 8:58 a.m. on Tuesday, 2 minutes ahead of her agreed-upon time with her father. He had promised a quick, simple job. Moving an old, small filing cabinet he wanted to store in the garage. She was dressed in non-committal gray sweats and a baseball cap, ready to be ruthlessly efficient and be home before 9:30. The mission was logistical, not emotional, which was exactly how Elara preferred her life to be managed. She scanned the driveway. There was no filing cabinet. Instead, dominating the space near the garage door was a 6-foot-tall, ridiculously ornate, 3-section mahogany bookshelf that looked like it belonged in a Gothic library, not her dad's cluttered garage. And next to it, holding a tape measure and looking entirely too cheerful, was Liam Parker. Elara gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles went white. This was not a filing cabinet. This was a siege. She forced herself out of the car, slamming the door. Liam, what is this? She asked, gesturing at the monolith of heavy wood. Liam smiled, and the full force of the smile, the one that had caused her internal monologue to go rogue, hit her, momentarily stunning her. He looked casual in jeans and a dark t-shirt, his hair slightly disheveled. Hey, Elara. Great timing. This. Apparently, it's a new acquisition of your dad's. He said he needed help shifting it and thought we could tackle it before my 10 a.m. class. Where is he? Elara's voice was dangerously low. Liam gestured vaguely toward the house. Oh, he had a sudden, critical plumbing emergency, and had to run to the hardware store. Said he'd be back by noon. He left me a note and said you knew the plan. The note was undoubtedly laminated and probably came with a theme song. Elara glared at the bookshelf, which now seemed to be glowing with malevolent, matchmaking energy. They hadn't spoken since her frantic, all-caps salmon dip denial text. Now they were expected to engage in heavy, close-quarters physical labor. The family was playing chess, and Elara had just realized she was a disposable pawn. Right. The plan, Elara muttered, walking toward the bookshelf. Well, let's be fast. We're moving it into the back of my truck, I assume? Actually, Liam said, adjusting the massive central section, it's going to my place. Dad said he needed it stored in my spare bedroom until they finished their garage renovation. Which, could be never. Elara pinched the bridge of her nose. Liam's apartment was 2 floors up, and the building had no elevator. This was a multi-hour, emotionally excruciating, full-contact operation. Fine, Elara clipped out, grabbing the nearest edge of the mahogany. You take the top. I'll take the bottom. On 3. And keep the chat strictly logistical. We do not discuss games, fish products, or psychological crises. The first movement was awful. The bookshelf was heavier than it looked, and the surface was smooth. Their hands gripped the same polished wood, their forearms brushing every time they adjusted their balance. Ready? Liam asked, his voice strained. Just move, Elara grunted, already hauling her end. As they navigated the tight, shadowy hallway leading from the garage to the drive, Elara kept her focus razor-sharp. Left foot, turn at 45 degrees, shift weight, watch the corner. She refused to look at Liam, relying only on the synchronicity of their movement, a rhythm they had developed years ago doing everything from kayaking to carrying groceries. It was the familiar ease of their partnership that suddenly betrayed her. Liam stumbled slightly on a loose rug, and his side of the shelf dipped. Elara instinctively counterbalanced, their shoulders bumping, forcing them into intimate momentary contact. Whoa, sorry. Liam gasped, regaining his footing. Focus, Parker, Elara snapped, but there was no heat in it. She was too busy noticing the familiar scent of his laundry detergent and the way his shirt pulled taut against his bicep. They managed to wedge the 3 sections into the truck and drove to Liam's building in strained silence. The real torture began on the stairs. Hauling the heaviest section up 24 unforgiving steps, navigating the narrow landings, Elara felt her carefully constructed denial cracking under the physical strain. They finally dropped the last section with a relieved thud in the center of Liam's empty spare room. Elara leaned against the doorframe, panting, completely covered in sawdust and sweat. Liam leaned against the shelf, also catching his breath. He looked over at her, his expression shifting from exhausted relief to something soft and earnest. He waited until she met his eyes before he spoke. "I know the salmon dip was innocent," he said gently, ignoring her strict logistical-only rule. "And I know your dad used me as bait. I told him I'd do it anyway because I wanted to see you." Elara's breath hitched, not from exertion, but surprise. You knew." "Elara, they changed your Wi-Fi password. They're not subtle. Look." He pushed himself off the shelf, his stance open and non-threatening. "I want to say this, and then we never have to talk about it again, okay? I value our friendship more than anything, truly. If the charades thing was just a weird competitive fluke, that's fine. If you want me to pretend I never heard it, I can. I'm good at pretending. But if there's even 0.1% of truth in that outburst, just tell me. I deserve to know, and you deserve to stop carrying that weight of denial." His sincerity was devastating. It wasn't the relieved laughter of her family, or the teasing of her siblings. It was the quiet, kind acceptance of Liam, the man who was currently giving her permission to walk away clean. It was the first time she realized that he wasn't the danger to the friendship. Her fear was. And the truth, that the sincerity in his eyes made him even cuter than his smile, was almost too much to hold back. Elara started, swallowing hard, her carefully built wall beginning to crumble. "I just needed a minute." She avoided the full answer, but she didn't deny it completely. It was a step forward, a tiny crack in the armor, and it cost her everything she had. Liam pulled his battered reliable pickup truck into the driveway of his brother Miles's house, feeling a confusing blend of exhaustion and exhilaration. He had managed to spend nearly 3 hours in close proximity to Elara, had survived the 24 stairs of the mahogany nightmare, and had received a half-answer that felt more significant than any full denial. "I just needed a minute." It was ringing in his ears, a tiny hopeful chime that contradicted years of Elara's insistent platonic declarations. Miles, a successful engineer 5 years Liam's senior, was already waiting, leaning against his garage, holding 2 sweating bottles of craft soda. "The hero returns," Miles called out, tossing a soda to Liam. "Did you survive the plumbing emergency?" "I survived the bookshelf, which I correctly identified as a Trojan horse designed to force physical intimacy," Liam replied, taking a long drink. "But seriously, Miles, why are you all like this? You guys have been placing bets on us since high school." Miles pushed off the wall, his expression shifting from teasing to genuinely serious. "We bet on you because it's obviously. Elara is your person. And she's in a state of advanced, clinical denial. We're just expediting the inevitable." "But why is it obvious?" Liam asked, scrubbing a hand over his face. "I thought we were just good friends. She's the one who lectures me about boundaries, who insists on splitting the bill down to the cent, who treats me like a really useful, slightly annoying brother." Miles laughed, a deep, knowing sound. "No, that's how she treats everyone else. You get the edited version. Do you want the evidence pile?" "I've been building it for years." Liam nodded, feeling a strange mixture of dread and anticipation. "Exhibit A," Miles began, counting on his fingers. "Remember freshman year of college when you briefly dated that girl, Chloe, from the drama club? The one who insisted on calling you Liam-o?" "Yeah, I remember." Elara threw a full-blown passive-aggressive fit about her for 3 months. She accidentally spilled coffee on Chloe's favorite scarf. She criticized her major, her taste in music, and her choice of breakfast cereal. That wasn't friend territory, man. That was territory marking. "I thought she just hated Chloe's scarf," Liam murmured, feeling a dense knot of past obliviousness tighten in his stomach. "Exhibit B. Your 18th birthday. You were sick, right? Missed the party. Who brought you those ridiculously expensive imported German cough drops, stayed up all night to watch Lord of the Rings with you, and made you 3 separate servings of chicken noodle soup? Not your mom. Elara." And she told me later that if I ever told anyone, she would destroy my credit score. Miles paused. She makes your favorite cinnamon maple coffee every time she's at your house, without asking, even if she's just there to borrow your charger. She notices things about you nobody else does. The weight of the evidence was crushing. Liam realized his initial hope wasn't just his imagination. It was confirmed by external data. Elara's over-the-top denial wasn't a dismissal of him. It was a defense mechanism against herself. Meanwhile, Elara was not doing any better back at home. She stormed into the kitchen, where Chloe was meticulously organizing the spice rack, a clear sign she was trying to look busy and innocent. "You," Elara said, pointing a finger at her younger sister. "The bookshelf. The plumbing emergency. The Wi-Fi password. You're all in on this. Why? Why can't you just respect the fact that Liam is my best friend, and I need him to stay that way?" Chloe sighed, placing a jar of paprika back in its place. "Sit down, Elara. You're scaring the cumin." Elara sat, rigid with anger. "Answer me." "Okay, I will. But you have to be honest with yourself for once, not me. Why are you so terrified of admitting you like him?" Chloe looked directly into her eyes, no longer teasing. "It's not because we'll tease you. It's not because you're scared of being vulnerable. It's because you're scared of losing the friendship, isn't it?" The truth landed with the sickening thud of a dropped cast iron pan. Elara felt the heat drain from her face. "Yes," she whispered, the single word a surrender. "He is the only stable, consistent thing in my life outside of this family. If we date and it goes badly, if it gets awkward, if we break up, I don't just lose a boyfriend. I lose him. I lose my history. I can recover from a failed relationship. I can't recover from losing Liam." Chloe walked over and put a gentle hand on her shoulder. "That's the most heartbreaking, irrational, and completely Elara reason I've ever heard. Look, do you really think Liam, after knowing you for 20 years, is the kind of person who would let a failed 3-month relationship destroy a lifetime of friendship? He's too good for that. He's too committed. He showed you today he cares more about your peace than his curiosity. But what if I mess it up?" Elara's voice was shaky. "What if my overanalyzing and my need for control drives him crazy? Then he'll tell you, and you'll fix it. You two are built on a rock-solid foundation, Elara. It's why we ship you so hard. The greatest risk you face right now isn't losing the friendship by dating. It's losing the chance at happiness by continuing to live a lie. That accidental outburst gave you a moment of honesty. Now you have to choose to accept it." Elara sat there long after Chloe left the room, the scent of cumin and the undeniable weight of her sister's logic filling the silence. Both Liam and Chloe had delivered the same message. The friendship was the foundation, not the barrier. And the risk was worth it. 2 days after the great bookshelf debacle, Elara and Liam found themselves hunched over Elara's dining table, submerged in their shared final project for their comparative literature course. The assignment, an exhaustive analysis of modern myth structures, required them to cross-reference digitized texts with obscure historical archives. A task made no easier by the fact that Elara insisted on reviewing every source 3 times. It was nearly midnight. Elara's apartment was usually a monument to organization, but the table was currently a controlled disaster area of open laptops, printouts, and empty coffee mugs. Elara thrived in this environment of controlled chaos, tapping furiously away, while Liam leaned back, editing a citation with serene concentration. "We need to circle back to the Norse element," Elara muttered, rubbing her tired eyes. "My cross-check shows that the Volsunga saga reference we used yesterday actually has a corrupted translation in the digital archive. It changes the subtext of the hero's journey entirely." Liam paused, running a hand through his perpetually messy hair. "Okay, but even if the specific word is wrong, the core principle, sacrifice for redemption, still holds. Elara, we are 12,000 words in. Maybe we can let the subtext of a single Norse word slide for the sake of our rapidly approaching deadline and my sanity." "No," Elara said without looking up. "Control the variables, control the outcome. You know my motto." "Your motto is why you live in perpetual fear of a speck of dust," Liam chuckled, pushing his chair back. He stood up to stretch, momentarily blocking the fluorescent kitchen light. It was precisely at that moment, as if fate itself were tired of Elara's relentless perfectionism, that the lights flickered violently and then went out entirely. Elara froze. The sudden, Absolute dark was startling. The low whine of her laptop battery running down was the only sound. Perfect, Elara groaned, sinking her head onto the pile of papers. Just perfect. The universe is actively conspiring against my GPA. Liam was instantly calm. It's just a neighborhood outage. Happens all the time. Hold on. He disappeared into the darkness, and a moment later, a warm golden glow bloomed from the center of the room. He had retrieved 2 fat emergency candles and placed them in ceramic saucers on the table. The soft, dancing light radically transformed the space, turning the sterile, analytical dining area into something intimate and hushed. Elara looked up, feeling a strange warmth that had nothing to do with the candle flame. In the low light, Liam's features, the sharp line of his jaw, the curve of his smile, were softened, more artistic than real. She forgot, for a minute, about the Norse saga. See, Liam whispered, his voice lowered by the quiet. Crisis managed. And the battery life on your laptop will hold for another hour if we dim the screen. We can finish the introduction. They managed a few minutes of work, the silence occasionally punctuated by the scratch of Liam's pen. But the atmosphere was too charged, too close. Hey, Liam finally said, his eyes catching the candlelight. Since we're waiting for the grid to reboot, remind me again why you got so aggressive about the debate club in high school? You lost 1 round and you quit. It was so unlike you. Elara stiffened. That memory was buried deep. I didn't quit. I retired gracefully. You threw your index cards into the school fountain, Liam corrected gently. And you cried in my car for 40 minutes because you couldn't tolerate being anything less than perfect. You were terrified of failing, even once, in front of everyone. Elara felt the old embarrassment flare. It was humiliating. I spent 3 weeks preparing, and I still choked. Yeah, but you didn't go back in because you couldn't stand the possibility of a second failure. But what did I do that night? Elara looked at him, remembering the details she usually suppressed. You drove me around the city, buying me 3 different kinds of hot chocolate until I felt better. And I also confessed that I had failed my driver's test twice. And then told you about that time I spilled paint all over the drama department's new costumes and just left the state for 2 days. Liam grinned wryly. I showed you my failure so yours didn't feel so big. That's what we do. We're each other's safe harbor. He wasn't wrong. Over the years, she had witnessed Liam mess up, fail, and get hurt, and she had always been there to help him rebuild, never judging. And he had always offered her that same unconditional space. The memory deepened the realization her sister had forced upon her. The fear of losing him was irrelevant because he was the one person in her life who knew how to handle her at her worst, her most imperfect. Their friendship wasn't a fragile vase that could shatter under the stress of romance. It was a deep, complex root system, intertwined and resilient. Looking at him now in the soft glow, watching the serious, unwavering kindness in his eyes, Elara felt her chest ache. It wasn't just that he was cute when he smiled. He was beautiful when he cared. The greatest risk you face right now isn't losing the friendship by dating. It's losing the chance at happiness by continuing to live a lie, Chloe's words echoed. The room remained dark, but inside Elara's head, the lights had just come back on. The realization wasn't romantic fantasy. It was cold, hard logic. Liam was the best chance she had at a life less ruled by fear. And for the first time, she was willing to risk everything for him. The morning after the power outage, Elara was in a strange state of emotional limbo. The truth, that she loved Liam not just as a friend, but as the possibility of her future, felt heavy, solid, and terrifyingly real. She spent the early hours over-caffeinating and meticulously cleaning the remnants of the project from her dining table, trying to impose external order on the internal chaos. Liam arrived mid-morning, ostensibly to drop off a borrowed textbook, but really, Elara knew, to check the temperature of their new, fragile reality. "Morning," he said softly, leaning his shoulder against the doorframe. He looked slightly nervous, which was unusual for his generally unflappable nature. "Morning," Elara replied, her voice clipped and professional. "The project is done. I submitted it 15 minutes ago. We got an A-, which I'm arguing about later, but it's done." She handed him the neatly stacked printouts. "An A- is still an A," he chuckled, taking the stack. "You are the only person on Earth who considers that a defeat. Hey, since I'm here, you've still got that rickety old shelving unit in the storage closet, right? I can take it down for you." It looks like it's one loose screw away from disaster. Elara's meticulous nature was instantly overridden by a flicker of irritation. No, Liam, it's fine. I've been meaning to dismantle it, but it's a two-person job, and I have a four-step organizational plan for the rest of the day. Consider me your impromptu second person, he said easily, already heading toward the utility closet. He opened the door, revealing the narrow, dusty space where Elara kept bulk supplies and a collection of tools she never used. He reached for the top shelf, where the condemned wooden unit was precariously braced against the ceiling. Liam, don't lean on that, Elara warned, stepping toward the closet, but she was already too late. The shelf, weakened by decades of moisture, gave way with a splintering groan. It didn't crash down completely, but one corner collapsed violently, sending the heavy, sharp edge of a metal paint scraper, one of her father's relics, sliding down. Liam instinctively threw his arm up to shield his face, but the scraper grazed the sensitive skin of his inner palm near the base of his thumb. He let out a sharp, involuntary hiss of pain, dropping the shelf with a clatter. He pulled his hand back, and a vivid line of crimson immediately bloomed on his pale skin. The sight of the blood, so unexpected and so clearly his, completely demolished Elara's emotional defenses. Her controlled, rational self vanished, replaced by a fierce primal surge of protective terror. "Oh my God, no, no, no," she choked out, her voice high and tight. She grabbed his arm, pulling him out of the closet and toward the sink, moving with the alarming speed and efficiency of someone dealing with an emergency. "Elara, it's fine, it's just a cut," Liam started, trying to reassure her. "No, it's not fine. That metal was rusted, you need to clean it immediately," she interrupted, her hands already flying into motion. She snatched the first aid kit from the bathroom cabinet, setting it out on the counter with surgical precision. Her jaw was clenched, and her hands, usually so steady, were trembling slightly. She didn't ask permission. She turned the water on, carefully guiding his injured hand under the stream, her touch firm yet agonizingly gentle. She dabbed the deep cut with antiseptic, her brow furrowed in intense concentration, checking the wound for debris. "Stay still. If this is deep enough, we need to go to the clinic for a tetanus booster," she commanded, her tone brooking no argument. "It looks like it needs 3 steri strips, minimum. Do you feel any numbness? Any tingling?" Liam watched her, mesmerized. Her concern was far beyond what a friend would offer. This wasn't professional care. This was a level of raw, unedited panic and ferocious tenderness he had never seen aimed at him before. She was focused entirely on him, breathing short, shallow breaths as she meticulously applied the butterfly closures, her cheek resting barely an inch from his shoulder. Once the wound was cleaned, covered, and triple-checked, Elara wrapped the hand in a soft gauze bandage, tying it with a tight, neat knot. She stepped back, finally releasing his arm, and then immediately started organizing the discarded swabs and wrappers. The danger had passed, and her control was snapping back into place. "Okay," she stated, hands on her hips, her voice still a little shaky. "No heavy lifting for 48 hours. Change the dressing tonight. If you see any redness or fever, you call me immediately." "I mean it, Liam." Liam didn't move. He kept his bandaged hand elevated, but with his good hand, he reached out and gently took Elara's hand, the one that was still slightly shaking from the adrenaline. "Elara," he said, his voice quiet but firm, forcing her to look up from the trash can. "Look at me." When she finally met his gaze, he smiled that same cute, easy smile that started the entire fiasco, but this time, it was underscored by profound seriousness. "I know what your motto is," he said, his thumb tracing a comforting circle on the back of her hand. "Control the variables, control the outcome. But just now you lost all control. You reacted on pure, unadulterated instinct. You were terrified, and you didn't even try to hide it." He nodded toward his injured hand. "This is the part of you I want to risk everything for. The one who cares this intensely, who will drop everything and fight the whole world over a single cut. This isn't the concern you show your sister or your dad. This is the concern of someone who doesn't want to live without the other person being completely safe." Elara couldn't speak. She just shook her head, a silent plea for him to stop. "I'm not going to stop," he continued, taking a step closer, reducing the distance between them until he could see the tiny flecks of gold in her green eyes. "You've spent days convincing yourself the risk of losing me is too high, but I just proved I'm worth caring about this much. So, I'm going to make this easy. No pressure, no more family plotting. I'm asking you on a date. Elara. Not as a friend who needs a date, but as the guy who wants to see if the person who just saved his life is the one he's meant to spend it with. What do you say? Elara stared at Liam's outstretched hand, bandaged and clean, for a long silent moment after he asked her out. The sheer, terrifying honesty of his declaration, "This is the part of you I want to risk everything for," had pierced through every layer of her carefully constructed denial. She didn't shake her head in protest this time. She simply needed to breathe. I can't give you an answer right now, she finally managed, her voice barely a whisper. I need to analyze this. We need to talk, Liam, but not about a date. We need to talk about the foundation. Liam nodded, his serious expression softening slightly. He gently released her hand. I understand. Tell me when and where, and I'll be there. Whatever you decide, Elara, just be honest with me, okay? No more pretending. She agreed to meet him at the small, seldom-used fountain in the center of the university's botanical garden, a place of quiet study and neutral ground where they had spent countless afternoons together over the years. It was deliberately not a romantic location. It was where friends met to hash out tough decisions. An hour later, Elara arrived, her notebook, her constant companion and armor, clutched tightly in her hands. Liam was already waiting on a moss-covered stone bench. The air was cool and smelled of damp earth and late-blooming roses. Elara sat beside him, leaving a precise foot of space between them. She did not look at his bandaged hand, nor did she look at his face. She stared at the water trickling from the fountain's spout. I'm going to skip the denial, Elara began, her voice dry and precise, as if reading from a transcript. The outburst during game night was real. My reaction when you cut your hand was real. I haven't been able to think about anything else because the thought of you being genuinely hurt or removed from my life makes me physically ill. Liam stayed silent, letting her speak, recognizing this formal structure was how she processed overwhelming emotion. My sister Chloe was right, Elara continued, her gaze remaining fixed on the water. My refusal to acknowledge these feelings isn't about you, and it isn't about dating. It's about me. It's about control. I cannot control love, and I cannot control heartbreak. The only thing I can control is who I allow into my life to matter that much. And you matter the most. She finally turned to him, her eyes bright with unshed tears, her fear laid bare. Liam, you are my history. You are my safe harbor. You know every irrational fear, every embarrassing failure, and every ambitious goal I have. If we try this, if we date, and we fail, I don't lose a boyfriend I can forget in 6 months. I lose you. I lose the ability to have you here, on this bench, talking about a stupid comparative literature project. I lose the person who grounds me. And I don't believe I can survive that loss. That is the only variable I cannot afford to lose. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the gentle sound of the fountain. Liam reached out his uninjured hand, not to touch her, but to gently tap her closed notebook. You came prepared, good. Now let me argue the opposite case. He shifted on the bench so he was facing her, his posture open and honest. Elara, your entire argument is based on the premise that our friendship is a fragile bubble that romance will pop. But it's not a bubble. It's the concrete foundation you built your life on. If we date and we break up, what exactly changes about the fact that I know about your irrational fear of failure? Or the fact that I know you love cinnamon maple coffee? The comfort changes, Elara whispered. The ease. The safety. No, Liam countered firmly. The safety comes from us. It comes from the fact that we've known each other for 20 years, and in all that time, neither of us has ever walked away. We fought through all the awkward teenage years, all the terrible fashion phases, and the terrible taste in first dates. You think a potential 3-month relationship is stronger than 2 decades of shared history. He gently took the notebook from her trembling hands and placed it on the bench beside her. He took her hands, holding them both gently, his eyes unwavering. I am asking you to trust the foundation we already built. If we try this, I promise you, Elara, the friendship is the priority. If dating doesn't work out, we sit here on this bench, and we use the same tools we used when we helped each other through college application stress and family drama. Honesty, respect, and stubborn commitment. We are not fragile people. Elara. We are built for permanence. The only real risk is letting the greatest chance at happiness pass by because you're too scared of a theoretical failure. He paused, his voice dropping to a sincere murmur. I am not going anywhere. Ever. Whether I'm your best friend or your boyfriend, I am yours. And you are mine. The dam Elara had built over years of control and logic finally crumbled. He hadn't dismissed her fear, he had respected it and then used her own logic against her, proving that their bond was the strongest argument for risk, not against it. She didn't have to control the outcome because Liam was already guaranteeing the permanence of the core relationship. A tear finally escaped, tracing a hot path down her cheek. Okay, she whispered, the single word a momentous surrender. Okay. Let's risk it. A genuine smile, slow and incredibly endearing, finally broke through Liam's serious facade. It was the smile that had started all this trouble. He didn't rush. He leaned forward, closing the small symbolic gap between them, bringing his good hand up to gently cup her jaw. Their first intentional kiss was soft and slow, a confirmation rather than an explosion. It felt like coming home after a very long journey. It was safe, it was warm, and it tasted exactly like the possibility of forever. Elara's carefully structured life had never before included a secret of this magnitude. After the kiss by the botanical garden fountain, she and Liam had agreed to the most illogical, thrilling compromise possible. They were officially dating, and they would keep it a secret from her family for exactly 7 days. It was a small act of defiance, a way for Elara to reclaim a tiny sliver of control before the inevitable onslaught of chief shipper celebrations. Their first date wasn't a grand, sweeping gesture. It was perfectly, comfortably them. They ordered takeout and went back to the quiet safety of Liam's apartment, sitting cross-legged on the floor surrounded by his record collection. The major difference was the constant low-level thrum of physical awareness. Every time their knees brushed, every time Liam reached over to share a piece of food, the simple, decades-old action was now charged with electric tension. Elara found herself smiling more, a genuine, unguarded smile that felt unfamiliar on her usually precise features. She wasn't analyzing the date. She was simply enjoying the fact that she was holding hands with Liam, who was currently detailing the superior artistic merits of 90s hip-hop album covers. It's weird, Elara admitted on the 5th day, nestled against Liam on his couch, his uninjured arm wrapped securely around her shoulder. What is? He murmured, his breath warm against the top of her head. This. It's exactly the same as before, but everything feels brighter. Safer. The fear is still there, that low hum in my stomach, but it's drowned out by this. She gestured vaguely to the closeness of their embrace. I told you, Liam said, gently squeezing her shoulder. The foundation doesn't change. We just added a penthouse suite on top. By the time the agreed-upon 7 days were up, Elara felt ready. She had found a new balance point, grounded in the reality that her bond with Liam was not disposable. The accidental confession had not ruined her life. It had simply made it better. The announcement was planned for Sunday dinner, the Hayes family's weekly event that was marginally less competitive than game night, but still fraught with conversational sparring. Liam, having been invited as a guest for 20 years, was simply expected. The atmosphere at the dinner table was normal, a cacophony of overlapping stories, the clatter of silverware, and her father David, holding court about a tedious municipal zoning issue. Elara waited until dessert, when the mood was mellow and wine-induced. She cleared her throat, a small tentative sound that nonetheless commanded attention. Mom, Dad, Chloe. I have an update on my social life. Chloe, who had been aggressively texting under the table, immediately dropped her phone. Is this about the zoning issue, Elara? Because I really don't care. It's about Liam and me, Elara cut in, lifting her chin. She reached across the small space between their chairs and took Liam's hand under the table, squeezing it for courage. We're dating. Officially. For one shocking, glorious second, there was absolute, ringing silence. David paused mid-chew. Her mother, Sarah, froze while pouring tea. Chloe's jaw went slack. Then the explosion. Yes. Chloe shrieked, launching herself out of her seat. I told you, Mom. I told you. September 18th. I had September 18th. She was wildly fumbling with her phone, clearly seeking proof of the long-standing family bet. Sarah, Elara's mother, dissolved into tears of pure joy, dramatically leaning over to hug Liam first. Oh, my darling boy. I was just telling your mother last week you were the one. I knew it, I just knew it. Welcome to the family. Officially. David, the last bastion of composure, slammed his hand on the table. September 18th? Absolutely not. The terms of the bet stipulated the date of the intentional commitment, not the accidental outburst. I had October 1st. Chloe, check the group chat rules. He looked accusingly at Liam. You waited an entire week. That's manipulation for monetary gain, son. Liam, grinning widely through the chaos, simply held up his bandaged hand. I couldn't make a move until my primary caretaker signed off on the risk assessment. Elara couldn't help it. She threw her head back and laughed, a loud, uninhibited sound that bounced off the walls. It was a release, a triumph, and a surrender all at once. The moment she had dreaded, the public scrutiny she had fought for years, was happening, and it was perfect. It was loud, absurd, and filled with love. Later that evening, after the Hayes family had finally settled down, accepted defeat on their bet, and subjected Liam to 3 separate, detailed interviews about his intentions, Liam walked Elara back to her apartment. They paused on her porch, the air calm now, a stark contrast to the earlier familial storm. So, Liam said, tilting his head. How was the official debut? Worth the risk. Elara leaned against the door, feeling lighter than she had in years. She touched her lips gently, still feeling the faint echo of their kisses. It was loud, completely undignified, and my sister owes me $30, she summarized, meeting his gaze. But yes, it was worth it. It turns out that controlling the variables is vastly overrated. Liam smiled, reaching out to gently brush a stray lock of hair behind her ear. I'm glad your mind screamed that day, Elara. Because that was the only variable neither of us could control, and it was the only one that mattered. He leaned in for a soft, comfortable kiss. Not a first kiss, but a promise. The accidental confession had not been a mistake. It had been the brutally honest first step on a shared journey, one built on 2 decades of friendship and the fearless final acceptance of love. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more original novel stories. And stay tuned, our next story is coming soon.